Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. This is G. How the heck are you doing? You're watching All Astrology. I hope everybody is doing well. Hopefully, this video finds you at an interesting time in your life. I'm in the US. You see the date on the chart? I'm recording this video in September so we can the videos that were leading up to this and the videos I've already looked at for the rest of this month and even into December, January, February. Yeah, interesting times. Um, so with all of that said, we're going to just stay focused on November 15th because this is the date of a full moon. Okay. And the full moons are always, there are common themes with every full moon, just like there's common themes with eclipses. So the common theme with all full moons is an ending of a cycle. We are completing something. Something is over. Okay? Our job looking at the planets at this time and where they are up in the sky and the signs and the degrees that they're in is to try to get a little bit more understanding. Ending what? What's ending exactly? Obviously, I've got a lot of points on the chart and there are, oh, 1,000 different things we can talk about. My brain, and with all these points, I'm like, "Wow, but look at this, and then look at this." So, I have highlighted some of the things that I think are gonna be most important. So, first off, full moon. In what sign? By you find out where the moon is. The moon and the sun have to be exactly opposite of each other to have a full moon. The moon will be in Taurus at 24 degrees exactly. 24 degrees and 0 minutes. And yes, it is conjunct Uranus, Uranus, whatever the hell you want to call it. That's it right there. And with that conjunction, it means a surprise. It can mean something sudden. And Taurus by nature is my money, my values. So we can think about interest rates. We can think about, banks in general, values, the earth, like my values, um, my food, my creature comforts, my clothing, makeup. The ruler of the full moon, well, that's the sign that the moon is in. And what planet rules Taurus? Does anybody know? Anybody? Put it in the comments below. Right. We focus on the ruler of the sign that the full moon is in. So it's a completion and an ending of a cycle. There could be a surprise involved. The moon, lunar energy, which is feminine energy. Okay. So it could affect just specifically my home and my family and my values and my emotions and my emotional security and stability, but possibly the public because it's a lunar thing. And the moon, just like the moon and the ocean's tides, right? It goes mini and it goes macro. It goes really small and really big. So large swaths of people and very personal parts of just like my private individual bloodline family unit. And then my tribal energy, which is who I most connect with, who I vibe with, who I am likely have some history with, even though I might not recollect that history. There might even be what we call the soul's memory or alternative realities. And that's not to sound all crazy and sci-fi-ish, but there is this thing, this element from one existence to the other that you're only thing that kind of dies, right, is the physical and the material. There's this other thing that keeps on living. And that other thing has the capacity. Well, maybe it's just not one other thing, right? Like the spirit sense itself, but there's also some memory there. And I call it the soul memory, soul history. And so that is like a carryover. That's a carryover. So there's a lot here when we talk about the past because the moon also represents the past. So we think of restrictions, which Uranus rules Aquarius and so does Saturn. So this can be an end to the restrictive cycles in terms of interest rates, right? And we know that the United States started easing the monetary policy in September. I think, I think, yeah, in September, the 18th or something like that is the date that's coming up. And there's a definite decrease coming. We just weren't sure what the amount was going to be, but Uranus always seems to be prevalent. And that's a thing because it's not only surprises and something sudden, um, but Uranus can also be the authority figure, somebody in charge. Like, I'm the boss of this. So the boss, the Fed, right? Even though it's disconnected from the government, a separate entity, they rule the monetary policy in senses of controlling the interest rates and making sure that things don't get too wacky. That's their job, literally, to create balance, in especially when we have unprecedented, crazy, biblical sort of times, right? And so we think of the year 2019, 2020 pandemic shit, right? So there was a lot that had to be looked at. So in other words, here we are handling something that is really a product of the past. You see? So the financials are even our present values, like who I value in my life. What do I value? If I think back just to 4 years ago, have my priorities changed? What about my self-love and self-worth and self-care, right? What about what I consider my creature comfort? Speaking of which, little Taffy's down here on my legs. Hold on a second. I felt you. Thank you for not bumping into my leg. Oh, that was such a blessing. She just kind of, because I forgot to put that thing in my way. Hold on a second. Here you are. I knew I felt you down there. You coming to say hello to your fans? You coming to say, give them a big paw high five? Okay. So Uranus energy can be somebody in charge, and we think of lightning bolts. We think of unconventional and different because that's Uranus. It says this has never been done before, or if it has been done before, it's been a shitload long time, right? It's been so long that we kind of went out of practice with it. And we think of, what happened with the pandemic. We think of global vaccinations. We think of people dying in large quantities because of this thing that was gripping, people were dying, right? And it's not just a news story. Like, yeah, I can name people that have died, right? And Uranus is people who are older, but can also be people who are younger. This is just this kind of give this backstory to what it is we're doing right now. And how does the moon play a role in terms of history with all that's going on and what we're releasing? Because Taurus is money and values. 24 degrees is an ending and a closure. The moon is an ending and a closure, a completion of a cycle. The 25 degrees, why? Well, that's an Aries degree. And when we think of somebody who's in charge and we think of independence and freedoms, 25 degrees Aries, my appearance, my body, freedom being such a huge factor. We think of rebels, right? Of people who are like, I'm not following the mainstream. I'm not following what I'm told to do. I'm not following what the goddamn rules are. I'm rebellious, possibly even. Very feisty, fiery, Aryan, ego, my way or the highway type of energy when you mix 25 with Uranian energy. Now, with all that said, an authority figure holds that same sort of power. Sometimes, sure, we've seen lots of examples where these people don't feel that the rules apply to them. We could probably name a few names, right? Sure. So let's go look at the ruler, and the ruler of the full moon is Venus. Yeah. Had her drawn up there right at the get-go for November's full moon because she rules Taurus energy. So this tells us then that if we write down all the Venus keywords, desire, my desires, my values, my bank account, my love. So that can be your relationships. That can be like, ooh, I love that person, right? So we think of desire when it comes to that. We think of the different definitions and meanings where one person's meaning of the word love can look very different to another person. And the gray area and the fine line and the confusion that sometimes steps in between the difference of love and desire, right? And how that can get crazy because we get confused. We think one thing is looks this way and is this particular thing love, right? But in reality, it might just simply be, oh no, you really, there's more desire and infatuation involved with that. It doesn't equal love, right? So Venus likes, we think of the five senses: smell, taste, touch, what I can see. It's beauty and harmony. Venus loves those things. So when we think of beauty, harmony, and peace loving Venus, oh, this takes us back to here again, where unfortunately there was a time, as I was looking at charts, where there was a window of, oh my God, can there be peace in certain areas of the world, right? Even here in the US, can we have some damn peace? But would this possibly be a disruption? Like if there was a peace cycle, if there was a truce cycle going on, and I'm saying this loosely, because the word was is big here, right? Because it's the moon in Uranus, which means if there was, then there might be like a surprise that comes in to upset the peace, to upset the harmony, right? Because it's a full moon. And we all know what the full moons, the moon, the ocean tides, the rise and the fall, the increase of water, which means increase of emotion, which means increase in the past and the history and the memory. That's also part of this. Okay. So let's back the chart up. And this means that the sun, by the way, is going to be in Scorpio at 24 degrees. So Scorpio at 24 degrees, again, 24 degrees and ending in a closure, completion. The sun is also an authority figure. So this full moon is kind of intense because it's a sun in Scorpio. Scorpio is intense. It's born for war. We think of trauma and tragedies and pray to God there can be healing when we talk about Scorpio, but there's usually some wounds that are incurred first if you need to be healed, right? Yeah. And the wounds can be emotional, right? It doesn't have to be physical trauma. It can be emotional and mental trauma. A whole lot of that going around. Even ethical traumas, moral traumas. Like there's just, my God, I just never knew the different layers of trauma that there can be. It's just, energetic trauma is Scorpio in general. So it holds all that memory and the history and the deep wounds. That is Scorpio energy, really psychic. And the thing is, it's deeply bonded energy. It won't release it. And that's what makes Scorpio difficult. That's one of the difficult parts of the Scorpio energy is when we have wounds, there's something about the over-identification of, but I'm a warrior. I got these wounds. I earned these battle scars, right? It's kind of like one of those things where I wear my badge, my battle, whatever's on my arm. And it's like, but I've been through it. I've done it. I fought and I suffered and I endured even. Scorpio definitely is all about enduring energy. It's definitely about, I can take it. I can take it. And I'm always willing to fight and to keep on going. And I will not surrender. Scorpio doesn't surrender. That's the tricky thing with that energy, which is how that energy can be super beautiful in a lot of ways. But in other ways, when it's time to release something, the healing can't occur unless we first release, unless we first let the shit go. And I realize there's a lot of processing that has to go on before that. I get it. It's not just I can make my decision and it's done. The Scorpio with the sun there, being an authority figure, being at the opposition, the tight opposition to Uranus and the sun, right? Two authority figures at opposing ends, Uranus and the sun in the chart. Right, Uranus within money and values. Scorpio is also the same as far as money, values, and desires, but it's shared desires, shared values, shared resources, shared money, right? We think of the earth's and its natural resources, not just my food, but our food, like the planet. Do we value the planet, right? Remember Mars and Pluto are the rulers of Scorpio energy. Okay. So we always kind of Look back at who those planetary rulers are to give us a little bit more understanding and meaning behind the event, especially if you have objects at the degrees. So that takes me to Taurus energy, 24, 25 degrees and 26 degrees. I have to point out the 26 because we have Elgo at 26, which is usually a very dark fixed star. Usually not the best things happen. When we had that major security breach and what was that, CrowdStrike and Microsoft, there was like all that shit that went crazy. We were down. That's when we had, I don't know if we had a microburst or I think it was a tornado like one block over or something. We were down with power for 4 or 5 days, and so we had no internet. Even the internet in the area, like you could go to the library. The library had power, but there was no internet. And so that was that big tech freaking thing. Big, I think there was a bug in the security system or something is what it came down to, or a bad bug in the programming, whatever it was, it caused a huge problem. And Aquarius energy and the conjunction with that algo at 26 was part of it. And values for sure, right? Lots of lots of different ways we can look at this. Technology being used in warfare, because we got Scorpio energy on the screen and the sun there. We think drone energy, how drones are being used. There's a nice stellium here. It's 3, 24, 25, 26. So this creates a bigger orb for the full moon then. So it creates a bigger orb in the higher numbers. So what I would say is if you have anything in Taurus at 24, 25, 26, 27, and even 28 degrees, this can be part of a release and a let go in your life. Look for those degrees and look to see what house number they are in for you. That tells you that tells you more specifically the area of your life that it's happening in. If you don't have your chart, comment to me below so I can get your chart to you. It doesn't cost you a darn thing. Um, as far as the degrees going in the opposite direction, we don't have anything at 23 or 22 or 21. Now, you may in your life, right? But we're going to give an orb to 22 degrees because it's a 2-degree orb for the event, which would mean 22, 23, and 24. I know I have something at 22. So actually I have multiple things at 22 that I think about it. So this is a big event for me as well. And I know where it happens in my chart. So that kind of gives me an indicator of, okay, how is this going to affect me? Because like what area of my life would this be affecting me in, right? So that's what you want to find out for you. And the 22 means you have something there. If you don't have anything at 22 or 23 or 24 or 25, like then don't worry about it. You may just be hearing about other people and what they're going through. Okay. For those of us that have objects within 22 degree to 28 degrees of Taurus, and we can even say 22 degree to 28 degrees of Scorpio, because it's the opposition that's going to be a part of this. And with full moons, just like with eclipses, it's really only the conjunction and the opposition that we pay attention to, because there's only going to be a temporary trine or square for like that one day event. But when it comes to the grander scheme of things, the grander cycles, it's really about the conjunctions and the oppositions. I know I always get tons of people giving me the angles to the squares of the eclipses and of the full moons. And sure, it'll be that one day event, stress and tension. But when we talk about the conjunctions of moon things, these are bigger cycles. They're not like just a one day happening event because, the moon's involved, which would be mom and home and family. And when I say home and family, this can be housing and where you live. Right? Yeah, because it's the moon, and the moon encompasses all of that. Now, because Venus is the ruler, we think of women, we think of the values of women, we think of our women of value. Do women have the same freedoms and liberties as other individuals? right? So we think of we then this kind of makes me think of that in addition to, of course, the interest rates, but that's kind of an old story. I know the women thing, and that might not be a story everybody wants to hear about, but it's still a very, very a battle all its own that's going on, and that is absolutely a war on women. So that is part of this battle in my mind because Venus rules this. Venus, feminine energy. Okay. Now, if I back up real quick in the chart, the vertex points are in business. We've got vertex and anti-vertex. Vertex sitting at 14, which is the money degree. It's a Taurus degree. At the time of the full moon, vertex in Libra, partnerships, significant one-on-one relationships, personal and professional. We think of lawyers and banking, not just banking, but business partnerships, I should say. But I did say banking because it's Taurus, and that's a professional way of looking at money, right? Um, we can think of the scales of justice and Lady Liberty and the judicial system there. And at the opposite end would put vertex over here in Aries, the anti-vertex, I should say. The anti-vertex is the exact opposite of vertex. And that would then put that at 14. So between the 12 and the 19 here in Aries, my body. Aries, my freedom. Want to do what I want to do when I want to do it with my body. I'm not bothering you. It's my body. Mind your own business. It's my body, right? And this plays a role towards appearance, the color of my skin. When I look at someone, I immediately, are they male or female? And immediately there's a judgment call made. There's an attitude. There can be optimism and positivity because that is Aries energy, but it can be very feisty and a lot about the ego. Aries is also about war, right? Now, if I back the chart up on the big picture at this time, Venus, we have to look at her because she rules this freaking full moon. She is very professional here. She is very smart here. She is organized. She has her shit together here. She is in Capricorn. She's thinking for the long term, my long term values, my long term desire and love, but it's very mature because it's in Capricorn energy. She's thinking about the long term financial, material, financial stability, material, financial security. What are the steps I got to take? What am I building? How am I building my values and my finances? How am I securing my security, my stability, my future, especially feminine energy and women? Again, women comes into the picture. And the two Venuses are together at 3 degrees in Capricorn. So they're organized, they're smart, they're working together. And Pallas Athena at 24 here. Pallas Athena, she's the strategist. She's in Saggy. So we're using lawyers and the courtroom and the judicial system. We're being smart. We're thinking very much about the future. Feminine energy, which is why I brought it up, because feminine energy, there's this big connection always with the feminine energy. Doesn't mean that they always have to be seeing eye to eye, but there's going to be a very much a long-term thinking about my future, the future of my freedoms, and the planning and the strategizing. A big picture is how we're looking at this, but a release and a let go to something in the way that it was possibly pertaining to feminine energy. All right. And that would mean banking and money and all the Taurus values. And we see Mercury's over there in Saggy at 16. And of course, 16 is what? Right? Money. Well, in a way it is. It's actually values in terms of home and stability, but it's feminine energy too. Think of Cancer energy. So when I say the sticks and the bricks and that kind of home, that's 16 degrees. The home and the family, the future of the home and the family. Now, Saggy is immigrants and immigration, right? We think of housing, but if I have to read another comment, not necessarily on this channel, but if I have to read another comment from a bot or from whatever, talking about, oh, all the housing, if there's any housing that's going to be created, it's going to be given away for immigrants that are coming to this country. And it's just like, I mean, the hate is just, it's like, I'm done. I'm just so done. I was born here. I need a home. It is not just people who are coming here who weren't born here who need housing. Okay? That's that's a lie. So, to me, I wanna hear more about the housing. I wanna hear more about, okay, what can we do to increase the supply, to change whatever the rules are and the regulations, just to at least get into the nitty-gritty of how we can actually make this happen. Because look, where's Venus? What am I building for the future? Venus is at 4 degrees. You see? So, the public and housing, the public's values, the long-term goals, and yes, Capricorn is corporations, and maybe there'll be conversations about corporations buying up housing, like that private equity and all that shit and whatever. They say it's a small percentage when you look at the giant big picture percentage of available housing, and the percentage of corporations that purchase the housing. I've heard lots of different numbers. I don't know which one is true, to be honest with you. I know that corporate America would, of course, want to tell you whatever that number is, and they would want to paint the picture that it's a smaller number, right? Either freaking way, we have too many grown ass adults who don't have a place to live. Okay? What we're building for the long term, feminine energy in Capricorn, super pronounced. Look, Sirius at 22. This is feminine energy. Sirius, it's also food, but think feminine energy when you see Sirius. This is, I'm the mom and I'm feeding you. I'm feeding you. You're the child. The mom is Sirius. She's the one who feeds the babies, right? That's where we get our food from, the grain of the planet. So overall, there's definitely a release, and the common major themes are the money and the values and the priorities, possibly home and the housing and public, and absolutely feminine energy. Those are the common themes, shared values, and my values, money, interest rates, and banking. The last thing on this chart is the mystic rectangle that you can see. I want to show you the close up on it. Mars is part of it. Mars is at 3 degrees. Okay. Actions and my body, Mars. I'm impulsive. I can be angry. Mars here in November is about to start a retrograde. It begins when it hits 6 degrees of Leo. So Mars is going to do a retrograde from 6 degrees of Leo all the way back to 17 degrees of Cancer. This is more feminine energy. This is more mom energy, Cancer, home, housing, the public, feelings, emotional security and stability. Mars goes backwards and goes to that degree. Okay. So again, more common themes. More common themes. So Mars, the actions of my body, the freedom, maybe some soldier and war energy involved in this. Like I said earlier, possibly a release in something. The other part that's connected to this is the South Node in Libra. This is at 5 degrees, so that's a sextile. This sextile between Mars and the South Node is the short end of this mystic rectangle. South Node is a release and a let go. This is a lunar node, a moon thing. You see again the common themes, the moon. So when people tell you garbage that women don't rule the world, there's a reason they say that. The reason the astrology is more than proof. I mean, more than proof that women rule the world, because when you see how much moon energy is present in the chart, and that whenever we have these lunar cycles, full moons, lunar eclipses, and here's me just referencing the South Node, it's a thing. Shit happens, right? The ocean's tides rise and fall based on the moon, right? Yes. I don't make that up. It's what it is. So 5 degrees, this is Leo energy. Think children, politicians, actors, actresses, performers, joy and laughter, comedy, comedians. The show must go on, the big tent, clowns and circuses type of energy. That's all Leo energy. Having fun and playing games. It's all Leo energy. Taking risks, Leo energy. Taking risks. So it's Mars sextiling that energy. Something easily happens between taking action with my body and a release and a let go in business partnerships. Maybe some risks, right? Because it's risky energy at that 5 degree. Now, the other part of this mystic rectangle is Isis. We have not talked enough about Isis. She has been a big part of the energy in the last couple of months, and I have not talked about it at all. This is divine mother goddess energy, is Isis. The ability the ability to bring life to something. You think of the Nile River after there's been a lot of dry and there's desert like activity, and all of a sudden this rain comes and then the Nile overflows. And what does it do when it overflows? Sure, there can be flooding. That cannot be so great. But what happens after the rebuild? She's all about rebuilding. Isis is feminine energy. She's all about rebuilding. And look at the number, at the degree 4. More feminine energy, home, family, mom, mother wound, housing. And it doesn't escape me. We think of abortion. Uh, we think of reproductive rights. We think of women's health care, all the number 4. All the number 4. Mom has the power. Mom is the authority of her body because the main body is the priority. Body numero uno, right? Number 1. I am the authority. And then the homes and the public, for sure. Number 4. Shocks and surprises, possibly. Something different, new, and unconventional being presented, possibly, for sure. The other part of the mystic rectangle is the North Node. The North Node, another lunar node, another moon object at 5 degrees in Aries. Aries. So there's this strong sextile that we have between the North Node, my body, my freedoms of my body, the appearance of my bodily autonomy, my right, my body, and the 4 degrees of Aquarius, which is can be a little bit of a rebelliousness energy, can be the authority figure, but this is a strong sextile. You see? Remember, this goes backwards. This goes forward, right? So there's a very strong sextile. And this North Node at 5 degrees, the freedoms of my body. And of course, Aries, I mentioned before, sometimes it's the soldier energy. So we have to be cautious with our ego and our fiery ass. I want to be first, or just I am an instigator, right? I want to start shit. Like Aries has a tendency when it gets bored. It's like Scorpio in that way. It's like a child. You have to redirect their energy. That's a trine. Mars and the North Node are trining. Remember, Mars is going forward. It's going to go all the way to 6. So here's Mars heading up in numbers. It's a slow mover. So for this entire week, Mars will be trining the North Node in Aries. The North Node represents the future. This may be the future of freedoms and civil liberties, the future of my body. Feminine energy has been quite prominent. I just showed you, I dissected piece by piece all the feminine energy in the chart. That's not to say there aren't other objects in the chart. There are, but the ones that I talked about are at significant points for the full moon. I will also mention interest rates. I already did, but I know interest rate decisions, I think, is in a couple of days from this date. And I also want to say that um, Congress, I think from this day moving forward, there's about a 1-month deadline for Congress to prevent a government shutdown because values and money is always going to be on the table. Yeah, always going to be on the table. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I know in December, just to give everybody a heads up, in the month of December, we will have not 1, but 2 new moons. Yeah. So look out for that, for those videos. They'll come out separately. But just to give you an idea, there's when you have a double cycle that you normally only have a 1 of in a month, normally you have 1 new moon and 1 full moon. Um, Because you have 2 new moons, it tells you there's like a reset going on because it's a reinforcement of this new beginning. The details will come when we show that video, right? We'll talk about it like we did with this one, and we'll do a deep dive. New moons are new beginnings. It's a new cycle. You got questions? You don't have your chart? If you have things you need that I can help you with, please comment below. Help you out in any way that I can. Until then, we're all done. I'll see you in the next video. You take care. Bye-bye.